says right here on the script, if your car's making a grinding sound when you push on the brakes, might be time for new brakes.
You're in trouble.
If the in-laws are making noise in the car, it might be time for some new in-laws.
But don't go anywhere to get them replaced. Watch out for bargain brake jobs. Our Monday morning mechanic, David Rogers from Keller Brothers Auto Repair, is joining us live to explain why you have to be careful. Hi, David.
Well, good morning. How are you?
Good.
Good. Hey, absolutely you should be careful. Cheap brake job means two things: cheap parts and lower quality technician. And I'm going to show you how a couple of those things can really backfire on you today and make it for a dangerous ride. You know, when we think about brakes, the first thing we think about are pads. And the pads, we've talked about them before. You have this rotor that spins with the wheel, and the pad is this flat thing that's supposed to grab onto the rotor on both sides. And the key to it is that we want that pad to touch the entire rotor so that you have as much braking power as possible. Well, these pads have kind of a funny lip to them, don't they? Those aren't supposed to be there. That's supposed to be completely flat. And what you're looking at is a pad that was put on a rotor that was too small. This rotor didn't belong on the vehicle that it was put on in one of these $99 brake jobs. And what's happened is the pads have actually worn, and instead of this part of the material where you see the lip helping stop the car, it's actually now on the outside, rubbing where it's not supposed to be. It's rubbed unevenly, and the brake pad's no longer making contact with the rotor. Therefore, the car's no longer stopping. These pads should have had months more of life left in them. So for that cheap brake job, now somebody's now stranded and out of their car. And frankly, it was a dangerous deal. It was really dangerous. They were not getting the stopping power that size vehicle needed. Another thing that you'll notice in a cheaper brake job, and this is a wheel cylinder, and on my little diagram here, you can kind of see back here we have the wheel cylinder. It's part of the drum system in the rear brakes. And basically what this does is it's where the fluid goes through, and it helps the brakes pump with the fluid. On a cheap brake job, they're not even going to bother taking this out and looking at it, but basically it should be taken out and inspected inside. We pull these rubber boots back to see if there's any signs of internal leak down of fluid, and you can kind of see a little bit of oil or fluid inside there. That's going to be time to recommend that for replacement. Another thing that happens a lot in cheap brake jobs, and these again are on the rear brakes, these are shoes. They work a lot like the pads do. They help stop. Here's the braking material. But instead of squeezing it flat like a pad, obviously that's not going to work here, they actually expand out into a drum that allows them to put pressure there and stop the car. And what happens in the cheap brake jobs often is you'll see these things put on backwards. The shorter shoe, the one with less brake material, always goes in the front and the other one goes in the rear. When we see them reversed, the car won't stop. And then you have a safety issue again. You know, you saved $80, but now you're on your way to the emergency room. Another thing that I want to show you here are wheel bearings. See this one? You can kind of see some coloration there. Hopefully you can see a little redness or orangeness to that. That's rust. And that's from a lack of grease in the wheel bearing. Now somebody gets to replace these, a few $100 more, no big deal, right? Nobody cares about that later as long as they get the cheap job today. And now you see this here is another wheel bearing, and this grease coming out of it, it makes it very hard to turn, and it costs you gas money because the seal's no good anymore in that wheel bearing, and the grease is pouring out. Basically, whole bunch of parts, probably nobody really cares about the parts. The thing that you need to understand is that here you are, you're trying to save $75, $80 on a job. You're much better taking it to a quality place with ASE certified master technicians, okay, AAA approved, BBB members, those kinds of places, and let a competent technician do the work. If you want to save money, tell them I need to save money where I can, so help me find an economical way to do it. Buying a cheap job is no way to do it. You're going to risk yourself, your life, your family.
Yeah, brakes may not be the place to save money.
Yikes.
Thank you, David, as always.